Edutrainment Workshops, the insurance industry's leading education and training platform, presents Life Insurance, the entry-level series, the products, the underwriting, and the planning applications to position your practice as the premier provider of insurance products in your community. Get on board, get on track, get to where you're going. And now, your Edutrainer, national insurance columnist, Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Steve Savant, your Edutrainer and coach for our Edutrainment workshops and our entry-level introduction into annuities. And all this week we've been laying the groundwork for basic ideas, basic concepts to introduce you into our whole entire area of annuities. I talked about this on the Tuesday show, on the second show into our series, in regards to the vocabulary that we have, our annuity vocabulary list. And if you want to order it, and I highly recommend that you do, go ahead and say, Steve, I need that, and I'll send it to you. Just write me at thebiz@brokersalliance.com. That's THEBIZ, brokersalliance.com, and I'll send it to you. And when I'm talking about Brokers Alliance, any of our Edutrainment workshops, if you say, Steve, I missed those shows, I always want you to go back to day one so that you can really build your education and get the tutorial in order and in the chronology that I taught it. Just head out to our site, www.brokersalliance.com. As soon as you come, hit that red on-demand video button, and it'll put you right into our archives, not only for Edutrainment workshops, but for the Business Insurance Zone, our daily talk show on the internet, as well as my weekend show, Welcome to the Weekend with Steve Savant. Well, today we're talking again about annuities, but this time we have to talk about taxes because it really matters. We've been talking about rates. We've been talking about how to earn money, whether it's fixed interest rates, whether it's indices, or using equities and variables. Today we're talking about taxation. And before moving forward, anything you hear on today's show, always check in with your CPA, your tax accountant, or your tax advisor or attorney, just to make sure that you understand what you heard from me. We're not counsels on that. We're just talking about it. And so if you want to have any more discussion on that, please feel free to do that. Here we have the federal income tax tables for 2012. And it really kind of does a great job in this spreadsheet or this grid by explaining kind of the tax brackets. We have a progressive tax system where the more you make, the more taxes you have to pay. But it's a blended marginal tax bracket. So you have to kind of do your math a little bit to find out what bracket you're in. I have to tell you, I've been using this service that services us with this grid for so many years, and I always have it with me, and I always calculate my clients' actual tax bracket so I have a good idea what those numbers are. You'll be so surprised that even though many people have their taxes done by CPAs and enrolled agents of the IRS and other accountants, that actually they don't know what their bracket is. They just know what they paid or didn't have to pay. That's all they know. As a percentage of what we have to do, we have to find out, is the annuity a good deal after I pay all my taxes, all the fees on the annuity, all the consequences of pulling that annuity out, especially during retirement, if Social Security is involved. I have to look at all this to see what the net effect is. I'm still shocked after 30 years in the business that nobody does this on a regular basis. I think it's very needful. Let's just look at it though. In the single area, single taxpayers, when people have money to put aside, they're generally not in the 10 or 15% bracket. So when you see the brackets over on the far side, you'll say, wow, that's true. On the right side, pretty much you're not going to have people in that area. There might be a little bit of 401k money in this. Some people that have their expenses paid maybe because they got an inheritance, but their tax bracket's low. But for all practical purposes, I generally don't start seeing annuities into what I call the blended marginal bracket of around 20%, whether it's qualified or whether it's non-qualified. Now, again, remember, everybody's going to have different opinion on that. Now, why I say that is because once you cross over the threshold as a single person at $35,350, and I have a few of my kids that are making money and they're saying, hey, look at the tax I have to pay on this. Well, welcome to my world. Now, when you look at these numbers, I'm looking at, sometimes I'm anywhere between any of these brackets. When I blend it all out, I might be at 22% federal. Now remember, we're not talking anything about state taxes at all. I leave that to you to discuss whatever state taxes you pay in your specific resident state. But this is federal. And right now, just a little side note, not to grind an axe, but almost half the country now does not pay federal income tax. And this could be part of our problem, of our deficit problem, because we have only half the people paying revenue. Now, when I think about this, when you move down the bracket, And again, married filing jointly, and feel free to order this. You say, Steve, I love this. Can you send it to me? I'll send it to you, thebiz@brokersalliance.com. Just write me, THEBIZ @brokersalliance.com, and I'm happy to send it to you. Now, married filing jointly, you get a little bit of a break here, okay, on some of the actual brackets as it progresses up. People who have real tax brackets that have high tax blended marginal brackets really like tax exempt, tax deferred, qualified plans, anything to stop taxes. But in qualified plans, we're only delaying it. In tax exempt, remember, certain tax exempt plans may be federally tax-free, but maybe not municipal, maybe not state. You have to figure out every single municipal bond that you're going to buy to get tax exempt money, but you have to figure out what area. Is it exposed to all three taxes, none of those taxes? You just have to find out which tax area, which has jurisdiction, and do you pay tax. And also be heads up that tax exempt money, like municipal bond, is included in the provisional income test to see whether your Social Security benefits are going to get taxed or not as well. So you just got to put all this in the equation. That's why I say I want to see the all-in numbers and the impact of my tax deferral. What's the power of tax deferral using an annuity, and how it relates, especially during retirement, how does it relate to my tax bracket? Because remember, ultimately when we pay this, we're going to have to pay ordinary income tax, and this chart is ordinary income tax, and it breaks it out. Now, at a client that we just did a couple weeks ago, that client was in between the $217,000 and the $388,000. That person now is going to be subject, if the Bush tax cuts aren't really renewed, they're going to be subject to these taxes even at a higher rate. So people that are making over $200,000 single and $250,000, that number is looked upon as taxable income. But actually, by the time you do your exemptions and any of your deductions, that number could be well below 200 grand. So when they say they're targeting people on the wealth side, I'm just telling you, this is going to hit middle class America big time. And that's why we're alerting people to the tax deferral issue, the power of tax deferral. And we think it's really huge, big enough to say, hey, look at these brackets, see the impact of holding off and not paying any taxes. The difference here is in CDs, I have a lower rate generally, and I have to pay ordinary income tax. But in this regard, I always like to say, as long as I don't have to take constructive receipt, and many of our CD holders don't use it for interest, for income, so it's really important to look at this and say, wow, if I can defer, if I can push this event off of taking money, the power of not paying taxes could be on my side. And if I can accumulate without any taxation, as long as I haven't taken constructive receipt of it, that's even the better. So I want you to start looking at this chart and understanding it and saying, what kind of number is this? What kind of chart is this? Does this lay out what I'm up against? And again, it has two more categories as well. People that are married but filing separately, and then heads of households. Figure out which one your client is actually filing under. We'll then go ahead and calculate the marginal blended bracket, the actual true federal tax, and then we'll be able to say, let's look at the power of taxation. And now I want to do is go to the whiteboard. Okay, so now we're at the whiteboard, and what I want to do is I want to just do a kind of a living example of a married couple. Both, one of them's 45, I believe the one I just did the other day was 43. And married couple has total combined income of $75,000 gross. Now, the first chunk of money just happens to hit that first bank of 10 and 15% blended bracket. So out of that 75, 70,000 of that, right, is going to be exposed to taxation. About 20% or so, not quite that, a blended bracket of 10 to 15%. And that tax bracket, that blended area is 75-35. Basic idea for the first 70. But I think it's 47. This is about 43. And then this number is going to be in the next bracket up, which is, because it's a step up or progressive system, 25% of that number, which is 1,075. So now when I look at that number, I'm going to go ahead and sit there and say, that's the tax I'm paying. So I know I'm paying a pretty good chunk here. So when I'm thinking about this kind of number, I know I'm in a blended bracket. I didn't pay too much in the high bracket there. So I'm going to look at that number and say, anytime I have between 15 and 18% federal tax, I'm going to look at that number and say, okay, that's what's going to be saving. Every year I defer. Every year I stall. Every year I don't take income. I'm deferring it away. Now, let's talk about, since I'm on the board, might as well do this right now. We talked about basis. We're going to talk about the exclusion ratio. And we're going to talk about any gain in the contract. Now, in basis, that, remember, we're under this thing called last in, first out. Or, as we call it in the industry, LIFO. L-I-F-O. Last in, well, what was first in was our contribution. Last in was the gain that we made on the contract. So last in, first out. When we take money out, gain comes out first, basis comes out second. So remember, we contributed basis, or our original contribution, but when any money comes back, the government automatically goes to this system called last in, first out, or LIFO. And LIFO, gain comes out number one, number two, basis at the end when you run out of gain. Now, when I'm looking at this is an interesting timeline because gain coming out in an SPIA, a single premium immediate annuity, or taking an annuity and annuitizing it, you're going to see that the exclusion ratio comes online when you annuitize it for life. Let's show an example of that. Let's say that my client has been accumulating from 45 to age 60. Those are the accumulation years. I think it needs a U. And then I also want to take distributions from age 60 to whatever my life expectancy is. And I'm going to, for our sake today, because you can order what I'm about to tell you, the 2001 CSO, where we built all our products on that CSO system. That's the mortality tables that we use. And if you want that again, just write me thebiz@brokersalliance.com and I'll send it to you. So we're using the 2001 CSO, and we're going to look at that as our distribution period. Now, my caveat here is that when I say LE, I'm using the phrase, right, life expectancy. So as long as you're alive, that is a life payout scenario that I'm going to talk about in a moment. Okay? Now, when I'm doing a life payout at this period, let's say my client goes all the way out to their age, joint equal age. They're both on the same contract, our 45 and 43-year-old. So let's say she lives to 90. So I have 30 years of this. And I know that I'm looking at that number. Every day she lives past 90, that's a number that the insurance carriers didn't count on. They looked at this actuarially and said, both mom and dad should be gone about at her age 90. Now that's true. Then when I come and take money out, I'm taking two forms of this money coming out. The first is my original basis is going to be amortized during this period to my life expectancy, which in this case is what I'm putting on at age 90. So that basis is going to be spread out. The longer the timeline, the lower the basis will be, and there's two parts to the payment. One part is basis. The other part is gain. Now, if the client decided to live past that time, then everything after 90, there would be no basis left. We already spent it down. So everything after that would be totally taxable. So you would have burned through or used your basis. But I like this because even though we said last in, first out, this is the exception to the rule. That exception is called the exclusion ratio in lifetime payouts. So I get a little bit of my basis back, amortized over my life expectancy, which gives me another tax advantage, one of the reasons why I like to use annuities.
This has been an Edutrainment Workshop, the educational division of the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance.